My name is Amanda Scheimer, and I work as a department head at a fairly well-known company. I currently live with my husband Chris and our daughter Emily. One day, I overheard Chris and Emily talking. Chris asked Emily if it was true, seeming surprised. Emily cheerfully confirmed that it was indeed true. Chris said that he would be against it as her father since she was still a student. Emily countered that she would be working the year after, and that it was better to get married sooner rather than later, or else she might end up an old maid like a certain someone, glancing pointedly at me. I thought to myself that she was quite the unpleasant girl, wishing she would stop looking at me like that. Emily turned to me and complained, "Hey, old hag. Today's lunch was plain and gross. My previous mom's lunches were way fancier and tastier. It was embarrassing to eat it in front of my friends." I tried to reason with her, suggesting that if she didn't like it, she could just eat at the school cafeteria, and reminded her that I only made her lunch because she said she hated the cafeteria food. I added that I didn't think the ingredients I used were particularly cheap or plain. Emily retorted that it was up to the person receiving the lunch to judge if it was plain or not, and questioned if a grown adult couldn't even understand that much. She declared that someone who made lunches like that wasn't a mother, just an old hag. I admonished her to watch her language, pointing out that she was a college student then, and would be a working adult the following year. She snapped at me to shut up and stop lecturing her like a mother, saying I had no right to preach at her about this and that. She sighed dramatically, saying she wished she had a mom who was better at cooking and younger and prettier. I was appalled at her cruel words. She coldly stated that it was just the truth, and told me not to get all worked up just because she hit the bullseye. I sighed in exasperation. Although I call her my daughter, we aren't related by blood. Chris is divorced, and Emily is his child from his previous marriage. Emily despises me from the bottom of her heart. She doesn't call me a mom or Amanda, just old hag as an insult. If I try to act like a mother, she flies into a rage. Yet when it's convenient for her, like with lunches or allowance, she demands I act like a mother. At first, I thought it might just be a rebellious phase and tried to put up with it, but after living together for 3 years, her treatment of me hasn't changed. If anything, it's only gotten worse day by day. I've started to feel resigned and now try to maintain a certain distance. But I know this can't go on. I've consulted Chris about it many times, but I asked Chris if he could properly talk to Emily about her behavior, now that things had come to this point. He told me not to be in such a rush, saying Emily was still young. I argued that it wasn't good to always brush it off with her age. He insisted Emily was a good kid and didn't spew abuse at others. I demanded to know why she did it to me then, asking if it was normal for her to call me an old hag. He claimed it was because we were close, and that it meant she felt comfortable around me. I disagreed, but said that even if she did feel at ease, I couldn't overlook her words and actions, citing the proverb, "There must be propriety even among close friends." Chris assured me it would be fine and that Emily would come around eventually, saying that's just how she was. He said it was cute and told me to be patient for now. I sighed, feeling like I wasn't getting through to him at all. I had consulted Chris about Emily's behavior many times before, but he had never taken it seriously. Chris was overprotective and doted on Emily, so he never scolded her. He would always say things like, "It's just a temporary rebellious phase," or, "The real Emily is an honest, kind girl," which exasperated me. I had been drawn to Chris's gentle nature and how he didn't let little things bother him, despite his modest salary. But now I wondered if that had backfired on me. I was starting to feel stressed, not just about Emily, but about Chris too. One day, I asked Emily why she was coming shopping with me, finding it unusual. She asked if she wasn't allowed to come. I said I was just surprised since it was rare. She told me there was a bag she wanted to buy and pointed it out. I balked at the high price, saying there was no way we could buy something like that on a regular day. She was incredulous, asking if I worked or not. I noted that she only called me a mom at times like this, but said it was impossible, sarcastically asking if I wasn't just an old hag to her. One day, Chris asked Emily if what she revealed to us suddenly was really true, sounding surprised. Emily cheerfully confirmed that it was indeed true. Chris said that as a father, he would be against it since she was still a student. Emily countered that she would be working next year, and that it was better to get married sooner rather than later, or else she might end up an old maid like a certain someone, glancing pointedly at me. I thought to myself that she was quite the unpleasant girl, wishing she would stop looking at me like that. I felt hurt and annoyed by her snide remarks, but tried to keep my composure. Emily had gotten pregnant with her boyfriend Noah Foster, who was the same age as her. She said she would give birth, graduate college, and then immediately marry Noah. Of course, Chris, who doted on Emily, was opposed at first. But when he found out Noah attended a prestigious university and came from a wealthy family, he gave his approval. Emily told us that while she was initially shocked by the pregnancy, she realized marrying Noah would make her life easy since his family was rich, even though she found him totally unattractive and thought his clothes were lame. She figured Noah would become wealthy too since he was smart. Chris asked when the baby was due. Emily said probably in about 3 months, right after her college graduation, so the timing worked out well. Chris inquired if they had gone to greet Noah's family yet. Emily said they had, and that his family had laid into them pretty harshly. Chris asked if she was okay, and if it had been scary. I thought to myself, seriously, this man. Emily said it was scary and that they had scolded her a lot, but she managed to get through it by pretending to be sincere. Chris noted that rich families tended to be like that, clearly enticed by the mention of Noah's wealth. I noticed Chris's expression softening and thought, oh boy, look at that dopey face. After discussing Emily and Noah's future, she turned to me with a look that gave me a bad feeling. Sure enough, she dropped a bombshell on me. Emily told me not to get involved with her pregnancy and marriage because it would be embarrassing to have an old hag like me as her mother. I was stunned and asked what she meant. She explained that while she didn't like Noah's strict mother-in-law, at least she was beautiful like a celebrity, unlike me. Emily said she would feel ashamed if people thought someone like me was her mother when she walked around town. I was at a loss for words. Emily declared that from now on, my involvement with them should be minimal, and that outside of formal family events, she was cutting ties with me. I was too shocked to respond. I couldn't believe these words were coming from someone who was about to become a mother herself in a few months. Surely even Chris would say something about such an outrageous statement. But it seemed I had underestimated this man. Chris asked Emily, "You're my daughter, right?" Emily assured him that of course she was, and that he was her one and only father in the world. Chris then inquired if she would come home regularly even after getting married. Emily said it was obvious that she would. Chris expressed his relief and then suggested that maybe I should refrain from getting involved with Noah's family, since Emily had said as much. Emily declared that it wasn't just about refraining, she would absolutely never let me meet them. I responded with a simple, "I see." In that moment, I felt something snap inside me, like a string breaking. I realized that if I kept associating with these people, I would end up ruined too. My brain sent out danger signals. I resolved to leave this house. But before that, I started planning for something a few months down the line. It might be a bit immature of me, but for the sake of the child that would be born soon, I decided I would destroy this family. I felt a grim determination to see my plan through, no matter what. Chris came home gushing about how adorable Emily's baby was, like a little angel, showing me the many photos he had taken since I wasn't allowed to meet the child in person. I agreed that the baby was cute, but said the poor thing. Chris asked what I meant by a poor thing. I brushed it off, saying it was nothing. Chris marveled at how he had initially doubted Emily getting married and becoming a mother, but now that he had a grandchild, he found the baby so lovable. I gave a non-committal response. Chris mentioned that Emily planned to bring the baby to our house sometime, so we needed to buy things for the child, and asked me to go shopping for baby gear with him. I suggested he go by himself. He complained that I was being cold, saying he would feel more confident with me there. I thought to myself that he was definitely just worried about the bill at checkout, but I kept that thought to myself. Emily had safely given birth and was then living at Noah's family home. After graduating college, she became a full-time housewife, while Noah started working at a company. As always, whenever I saw Emily, she subjected me to a barrage of snide remarks. And it wasn't just that, she also complained about her in-laws, Noah, and the struggles of child rearing. I had hoped that having a child might improve her personality by even 1 millimeter, but nothing changed at all. I felt strongly that she was someone who should never have become a mother. There was just one miscalculation on my part, but because of that, my resolve to carry out what I had decided in my heart months ago only grew stronger. During Emily's visit, Chris doted on her as usual, asking if she was doing well, eating properly, and not having any bad experiences. Emily reassured him that she was fine, thanked him, and said she loved him. Chris enthusiastically returned the sentiment. Emily then turned to me and said it had been a while, calling me a auntie instead of her usual old hag. I sarcastically noted the change in nickname. She condescendingly said she would call me auntie because it must hurt my feelings to be called an old hag. I dryly told her not to worry since I had nerves of steel. Emily informed me that everyone else would be arriving soon, so I should stay in the bedroom or go out and kill time somewhere. I agreed without protest. It was the day Emily's child, Noah, and his parents were coming to visit. Emily had arrived at the house early, probably to check if I was there. She seemed determined not to let me meet Noah's family no matter what. I told her I didn't mind, and that I would sleep in the bedroom since I had been feeling tired from work lately. She warned me not to step 1 foot out of the room. I assured her I would handle it. After that, I relaxed in the bedroom as she had instructed. As I contemplated when to execute my plan and thought about what would happen in a few hours, the bedroom door opened. I asked Emily what was wrong. She said she had forgotten to tell me something. I questioned what it was. She asked if I was still technically her mother. I reminded her that I thought she had cut ties with me. She dismissed it as just a verbal agreement. From her tone, I got the sense that she was going to try to use me for her own convenience again. I silently listened to what she had to say. She demanded a gift for giving birth, told me to watch the baby next week while she went out with friends, and said I should send her money regularly. I figured her in-laws must be strict, not allowing her to ask them for money or giving her time to go out and play. I smiled, thinking this was my chance. I told her it was impossible because we were strangers now. She insisted that cutting ties was just a verbal agreement and that I was still technically her father's wife. I asked if she understood nothing at all. I declared in a slightly raised voice that from now on, I would be a stranger to Chris too, because we were getting divorced. Emily faltered, stunned by my revelation. The living room, where voices had been audible until now, fell dead silent. I brushed past Emily, left the bedroom, and headed for the living room. I greeted everyone, noting that it wasn't the first time meeting Noah. Noah stammered in confusion, addressing me as a manager and asking why I was there. I admitted it was a miscalculation on my part too. You see, Noah, Emily's husband, had ended up getting a job at my company. I had found out a few weeks ago and was shocked. I hadn't had a good impression of him, being Emily's partner and marrying her while still in school, but he was actually very serious, honest, and responsible. It was a mystery to me how he ended up with someone like Emily. Chris, Noah's parents, Noah himself, and Emily all looked dumbfounded, so I explained the situation. Noah tentatively asked if this meant I was Emily's mother. I said I wasn't sure if I could call myself her mother since she had practically disowned me, and that in fact, at that very moment, she was truly cutting ties with me. I then addressed Noah directly, telling him I thought he was an excellent, sincere, and wonderful man, and that his next challenge would be to develop a better eye for women. Noah seemed confused by my statement. I operated my cell phone and pressed play on an audio file. Emily's voice rang out, calling me an old hag and telling me not to act like her mother, saying I was just an ATM. She complained about Noah's looks despite his intelligence and wealthy family background. She griped about Noah's parents being stingy even though they were rich, saying they should give her more considering she was dealing with the hassle of child rearing. Noah was aghast at hearing Emily call her own mother an old hag. Noah's father was indignant at being called stingy, and his mother was appalled at Emily's attitude towards parenting. Emily stammered, at a loss for words. I had compiled a collection of Emily's verbal abuse for this very day. She had not only disparaged me, but also complained about Noah and his parents. I felt a bit bad about making them hear it directly, but I thought it was better for them to know her true nature sooner rather than later. I was so worried about a child being raised by a mother like this that I decided to expose Emily's true colors as my own form of kindness. Once they knew everything, Noah and his parents were furious. Noah's father accused Emily of marrying Noah just to make things easy for herself. His mother said she had never seen a mother who dismissed child rearing as a hassle. Noah realized he had been treated as nothing more than an ATM. Emily desperately tried to deny it, but Noah demanded she explain how it was different. She turned to me, pleading for me to say it was just a joke. I asked why I should, since it was the truth, and offered to release the other audio clips. Emily begged me to spare her. Having finished exposing her true nature, I turned my gaze to Chris, who had fallen into a confused silence. I turned to Chris, who had fallen silent in confusion, and said, "But you know what, everyone? The root cause of her turning out like this lies with him." Chris stammered in shock. I explained that it was because he had spoiled Emily rotten that she ended up this way, always validating her even when she hurled terrible abuse at me, calling me an old hag, an ATM, and cutting ties with me. I sarcastically quoted his past words, "Emily is an honest, good girl, wasn't it?" Chris faltered, at a loss for words. Noah's mother asked if he had never scolded his daughter for speaking to me that way. Noah's father noted that it seemed the father was also part of the problem. I stated that for the sake of the child that had been born, I felt it was my final duty in this house to expose the darkness in this family, which is why I shared all this with everyone. Chris seemed confused by my mention of a final duty. I clarified that I meant divorce, and that I didn't have a shred of love left for him. Chris begged me to wait, saying this was too sudden. I retorted that it wasn't sudden at all, and that I had been considering it for quite a while. Noah told Emily he was disappointed in her, and in himself for choosing her as his partner. Noah's father agreed, saying Noah had been immature, and that they too had failed to see through Emily. Emily pleaded for them to wait. Noah's mother said that given the difficult situation with the newborn, an immediate decision about divorce might not be possible, and that depending on Noah's feelings, there could be a future for them if Emily reformed herself. Noah's father stated that for now, there was no future. Noah said he couldn't see a future either, and that he felt sorry for the child having a mother like this. Emily was at a loss. I added that they should be wary not just of Emily, but of Chris too, mentioning how he had constantly opposed the marriage at first, but did a complete 180 the moment he found out Noah's family was wealthy. Noah's father declared Chris a failure as a father. Noah's mother noted that the child was bad, but so were the parents. Noah said he would be leaving for today, and thanked me for the valuable information. I said it was partly my responsibility that things had turned out this way, and offered to provide support and consultation whenever needed. Noah expressed his gratitude. Emily begged him to wait. Noah coldly told her not to touch him or address him so familiarly. Emily was shocked. Not only Noah, but his parents too, excused themselves to me kindly before leaving the house. I announced that it was about time for me to get going as well. Emily pleaded with me to do something, calling me a mom. I asked how a nasty woman like her had any right to call me mom, saying it made me feel gross and telling her to stop. Chris stammered out an apology, saying he was truly sorry and asking me to wait. I told him it was too late, and that they were strangers to me now with nothing left to discuss. I pointed out that I had been covering most of the living expenses until now, so things would be tough for them going forward, wishing the low-paid salaryman good luck. Chris begged me to wait, saying he felt a certain way about me. I thanked him, but said I despised him and Emily, so while I thought they were in for a hard life, I wished them luck. I told them to contact me through my lawyer from now on. Emily and Chris wailed in despair, collapsing to their knees. I, on the other hand, left the house without looking back. After I left that toxic family situation behind, I heard that Noah's father confronted Emily about her frivolous spending, realizing she had used Noah's credit card. Emily stammered, unable to give a proper explanation. Noah's mother warned her not to get the wrong idea, firmly stating that they wouldn't give her a single cent of their fortune until she became a decent human being, and that she shouldn't expect to live a luxurious life. Emily was at a loss, whimpering in dismay. Noah accused her of only seeing him and his family as ATMs, and told her to buy her own personal items from now on, saying he would provide only living expenses and that he was confiscating his credit card from her. Emily thought to herself that this was too much for her to bear. Since the baby had just been born, Noah and Emily continued living together as husband and wife without getting divorced. Noah's parents strictly disciplined Emily in an effort to reform her. Although Noah's love for Emily seemed to have cooled, he maintained their marital relationship for the sake of the child. However, it was Emily, who had been spoiled rotten all her life, who reached her limit first and ran away from home. As a result of Emily's disappearance, Noah was granted custody of the child. It seems she didn't return to Chris's house either, and no one knows her whereabouts. Meanwhile, Chris was also living a rather tough life. His colleagues gossiped about how he had doted on his daughter too much, causing his wife to leave him, and how he had spoiled his daughter to the point that she became a monster. They snickered about how Emily had been abandoned by her spouse, saying her attempt to marry rich had failed. They noted that Chris was just a regular employee at his age, and wondered how he would survive after losing his elite wife. Chris thought to himself, wondering what he should do with his life now. The whole incident had become known at his company, and he was feeling self-conscious and miserable. After divorcing me, his standard of living had dropped significantly, and without Emily around, he was struggling both mentally and financially. He was now living a lonely life in a rundown apartment. There were rumors that he had become mentally unstable due to feeling out of place both at home and at work, and had turned to alcohol for solace. Apparently, he was frequenting hostess clubs to fill the void of loneliness, but since he didn't have that kind of money, he had fallen into a hellish cycle of debt. Well, it's not my concern anymore. As for me, I asked Noah how the baby was doing. He said the child was growing up healthy and strong, and that he was truly grateful to me for revealing Emily's true nature at an early stage, saying it would have been bad for the child's upbringing if he had continued living with her without knowing. He expressed disappointment in his own lack of judgment. I told him it was too late to dwell on what was done, and that he could consider it a learning experience for the future. He agreed, saying that although he was swamped with child-rearing and work at the moment, when he eventually looked for a new partner, he wanted to find a strong, cool woman like me. I jokingly told him that no matter how much he flattered me, he wouldn't get anything out of it, and urged him to focus on work. He replied with an enthusiastic "Yes, ma'am." Having cut ties with that family, I am now living a stress-free life, which allows me to be even more productive at work than before. At 43 years old, and especially after this whole ordeal, I had pretty much given up on the idea of getting married and starting a family, but I realized that happiness comes in different forms for everyone. For now, I just want to focus on my beloved job and enjoy each day to the fullest. I felt a sense of peace and contentment knowing I had made the right choice in leaving that toxic situation behind and prioritizing my own well-being and happiness. I look forward to the future with optimism, excited to see what new opportunities and adventures await me.